So in this section, we're going to talk about intervals as sets and also absolute values. So this is intervals or sets as absolute values. I think it's good to start off with saying what does an absolute value really mean to say that it's less than a number. So if I were to say that x is less than some number r, so x here is our variable, I'm saying that it's less than a number r, what does that really mean? Well, what this means is that x is between negative r and r. So, for example, to say that the absolute value of x is less than 5, this is the same thing as saying that x is between negative 5 and 5. So if I were to describe the set x such that the absolute value of x is less than 5, I could say this is the same set as x such that x is between negative 5 and 5, or I could describe this as the interval from negative 5 to 5. So this is what we mean by an interval or a set being written as an absolute value. So here's my set using absolute values. Here are my original set and my interval. So that's what we're trying to do here. In general, it doesn't just have to be a variable here. Seems silly. But to say that a heart, or anything really inside the absolute values, is less than r, that's to say that whatever was in between them is bounded below by negative r and above by r. So for example, let's describe the set of all x such that the absolute value of x minus 5 is less than 3 as a standard set, so the stuff that we've been doing, and an interval. Okay, so first let's start with this absolute value. So if I have the absolute value of x minus 5 is less than 3, what does that actually mean? We'll go back up here to this heart. It says anything that has an absolute value and it's less than r, I can bound it below by the negative 3 and above by just 3. Now how do I solve for x here? Add 5, so I'll have 8 above and 2 below. So this says that saying the absolute value of x minus 5 is less than 3 is the same thing as saying x is between 2 and 8, which tells me that the set of all x such that the absolute value of x minus 5 is less than 3 is the same thing as the set of all x such that 2 is less than x, which is less than 8, which is the same as the interval from 2 to 8. So that's how this works. Let's try another one. Let's move this up. Let's describe the set all x such that the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 5 as a different set and interval. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We don't want to have absolute values in our answer. So I'm going to say, saying that the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 5. How could I get rid of the absolute values? Bound it above and below by that top number. So negative 5 is less than or equal to 2x minus 1, which is less than or equal to 5. What do I do now? Let's add 1 to both sides. So I'll get 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 6, which is less than or equal to negative 4. Oops. Have that minus 1 there again. And now I'm going to divide by 2. So once I divide by 2, I'm going to get x is less than or equal to 3, is greater than or equal to negative 2. So saying the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 5 is the same as saying x is between negative 2 and 3, including the two endpoints. So how we would write this set is the set of all x such that the absolute value of 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 5. That's the same as the set of all x such that negative 2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to negative 3, which in terms of intervals, I'm going to have brackets now, negative 2 and 3. So since I have the equal to in the inequality, I'm going to have brackets. So That's how we go from a set with absolute values to another set or an interval. Now let's talk about how we go backwards. So how do we go from an interval to an absolute value? Well, there's going to be 3 steps that we're going to take here. So we're going to start with an interval. Let's say it's A to C. So this is our interval. Let's go ahead and draw this on a number line. I think that'll be easier to see. So there's my interval right there. First thing you're going to do is find the midpoint. So find the midpoint of the interval. And let's call that, how about B? So there's my interval. I'm going to find the midpoint of it. Second thing I'm going to do is find the distance from A to B. So we're going to find this distance right here, and we're going to call that R. So the reason that I say A to B, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be from B to C. They're going to be equal because B was the midpoint. So those are your first 2 steps. I'm going to first find the midpoint. That's going to label that as B. Then I'm going to find the distance from A to B. Third step that I'm going to do is rewrite this. So the interval from A to C is going to be equal to the set of all x such that x minus b is less than r. Now, of course, if these were brackets, I would include the r there, so it would be less than or equal to, but if they're parentheses, I'm just going to have strictly less than. So that's how we're going to do this. So let's do a few examples. Example 1, let's describe the interval from 1 to 11 as a set with absolute value. Now, of course, I could describe this as a set of all x, such that x was between 1 and 11, including 1 and 11, but let's say I want to have some absolute values. So first thing I'm going to do, put a little dot there, is find the center of the interval from 1 to 11. So what's in the center of 1 to 11? Well, that would be the average. So 1 plus 11 divided by 2 is going to be 6. So my midpoint is 6. Next, I want to find the distance from one of my endpoints to the middle. So that was the absolute value here. 6 minus 1, that gives me 5. Alternately, I could have done 11 minus 6, doesn't matter. It's all going to give me 5, so my r here is 5. Now that I have the center of my interval and the radius, which is what we're going to call it, the radius of the interval, or how far away the endpoints are from the center, I can say that the interval from 1 to 11 is going to be the set of all x, such that x minus my center, that was 6, less than or equal to, because I'm using brackets, is less than or equal to 5, which was r. Okay, let's do one more of these. Same thing. Let's describe the interval from -1 to 5 as a set with absolute values. So like I said before, we could definitely describe this as a set without absolute values. That would just be, we'll write that here. I could just write this as x between -1 and 5. Clearly that's a set, but that's not a set with absolute values. So go through my steps again. First thing, what's in the center of this set? So to find the center, average the two numbers. So that'll be -1 plus 5 divided by 2. So -1 plus 5 is 4, divide that by 2, I get 2. So my center here is going to be 2. Next, I'm going to figure out how far away are my endpoints from this center. So let's say I'm going to do from 2 to -1. So -1 minus 2, that's the absolute value of -3, which is 3. Or I could have done the absolute value of 5 minus 2, it doesn't matter. Either way, my radius here is going to be 3. So now I have my center, have the radius. Now I just rewrite. So the answer here is -1 to 5. It's going to be the set of all x such that the absolute value of x minus the center here is 2, is less than or equal to r, which is 3. Sorry, less than. Again, we use the less than because these were parentheses. If they would have been brackets, we would say less than or equal to. Okay. So that's how we go from an interval to a set containing absolute values. One thing I do want to note very quickly, how do you put together two different sets? This is kind of unrelated, but it matters about absolute values. Let's say I have this picture that I want to put in set or interval notation. So I have -1 to 2, so everything between those two, and then 5 to 10. So how would I describe that? Well, this -1 to 2, we know how to do that. That would be -1 to 2, including the two endpoints because I have closed dots. I also know how to describe this. How do I put them together? That's called a union. So it's kind of like a large U with no tail. This means union, or put the intervals or sets together. So anytime you see this large U, it's kind of like a plus. You're kind of putting them together. And this might come up, is why I mention it now. Whenever you have two sets that you want to put together, it's going to be a union, which is a U. So that's going to be it for writing intervals as absolute values and vice versa.